The collapse of power in Mexico, or the kingdom that discovered it was only a shadow. In Mexico, a name falls and cities ignite. Highways are blocked, airports shut down. Flames rise in response to an absence. But what is truly burning is not just violence. What is burning is a system that depended on a single man. And the question extends far beyond Mexico. When the leader falls, does your organization remain standing? There once was a kingdom said to be unshakable. Its walls appeared solid, its men disciplined, its decisions swift as lightning. At its helm stood a man regarded the way one regards a mountain, with awe, with respect, and with the quiet conviction that it would always be there. The kingdom was never mentioned without invoking his name. He was not merely its ruler. He was the invisible center around which everything revolved. Eyes turned toward him before words were spoken. His presence alone restored order. Then, one day, the mountain vanished. It was not a slow erosion, it was a rupture, a sudden absence that left the air suspended. The throne remained intact, but the weight that gave it meaning was gone, and the kingdom, all at once, found itself exposed. Then the fires began, not as strategy, but as a cry. Roads closed, markets burned, voices flared. This was not simply the anger of men deprived of their leader, it was the panic of a system realizing it had never learned to stand without him. Violence became language, as if chaos could drown out vertigo. It was called revenge. In truth, it was fear of a vacuum. The kingdom had believed itself strong, it discovered it was dependent. For years, it had confused authority with stability. It had assumed cohesion was born of fear, that unity naturally followed obedience. It had never examined what truly bound it together. The leader spoke and order followed. The leader decided and direction imposed itself. That was enough, until it wasn't. In the silence that followed the flames, a question rose hotter than the fires themselves. Were we ever truly a kingdom, or merely the shadow of one man? Some crises do not tear down walls, they fracture certainties. The kingdom was entering its inner night. It realized its strength had been vertical, not horizontal, descending from a single summit, never circulating among its members. The leader had been a pillar, but no bridges had been built between the people. Fear turned into agitation, ambitions collided, loyalties fractured. When the center disappears, the periphery searches for a new anchor. Everyone wanted to become the new summit, no one thought to become the foundation. Yet amid the confusion, a quiet truth began to emerge. It did not shout, it did not burn, it whispered. A kingdom does not endure through the presence of a man, it endures through the circulation of meaning. A leader may embody a vision, but if he is its sole custodian, the vision dies with him. The kingdom came to understand that what it had called loyalty was dependency, what it had called power was concentration, what it had called unity was merely vertical control. It had not built a culture, it had reinforced a figure. That is when the real journey began, not the search for a new ruler, but the search for an invisible center. Slowly, the kingdom learned to shift its gaze, to speak of principles rather than personalities, to tell its story differently, not as the saga of a providential man, but as the construction of shared meaning. It realized that stability cannot be decreed, it must be transmitted, that resilience is not born of fear, but of belonging. This process proved harder than revenge. Rebuilding a narrative demands more courage than raising a torch. The kingdom had to accept that its former greatness had been incomplete. It had to acknowledge that the leader's fall had exposed an old fragility. Yet as meaning began to circulate, the kingdom changed posture. It did not become more spectacular, it became deeper. The throne was eventually filled again, but this time the throne was no longer the center. The center had become a culture, a shared vision, a collective consciousness. The new leader grasped what the former had never had time to learn. True leadership is not about becoming indispensable. It is about building an organization capable of surviving your absence. And the kingdom that believed it would die with its ruler discovered it was in fact being reborn. For every fall reveals a truth. If a system burns when its leader collapses, it is not the fall that destroyed it. It is the dependency that weakened it long before. And so the question remains, quiet yet relentless. If your presence disappeared tomorrow, what would remain of what you lead? A fire or a sense of purpose?